Hey guys, I'm John from Blackstone Cherry and I play SIT strings. My grandfather played bluegrass for years. I had an uncle that played drums. My sister plays piano and sings. Kind of started with my uncle and my grandfather, to be honest, because nobody else aside from them ever did anything. But I grew up, listening to recordings of my uncle playing drums. I never got to meet him, unfortunately. He died in 1979 when I was born in '83, so obviously that didn't happen. My grandpa, I remember being a kid sitting around him, him playing acoustic and singing all these great bluegrass songs, stuff that he wrote, just classic bluegrass songs, and it was always inspirational to me. I actually went through quite a few instruments before I ended up on bass. I started playing piano first when I was just a kid, took lessons for a year, and didn't quite suit me because it took up all my recess time at school. So then I moved to drums later on. I enjoyed that, and then guitar later, and then when this band was put together, they asked me to play bass because they needed a bass player, and it's just how it happened. So I fell in love with bass after just a short time playing it, and I believe I was 18 years old when I started playing. Started playing shows about 2 weeks after we got the band together. We wrote enough songs to do a 30-minute set and started playing gigs right after that. When I first started playing, my true inspiration was the people around me, the musicians that I was surrounded by, the guys in my own band, all the guys from the Kentucky Headhunters, my family, my grandfather. My biggest inspirations, still lie in the people that I love that play music. I've got a lot of respect for them, but also, the list of amazing bass players can go on for days. James Jamerson's probably the top of my list. He played on all the old Funk Brothers stuff, and every Motown hit you ever heard has always been, James Jamerson. And later on, Bob Babbitt took over after Jamerson passed away. And Bob Babbitt's an amazing bass player as well. I was fortunate enough to meet him a long while back, and he came into the studio on the second record and sat in with me while I was doing some of the bass tracks. So it was a big honor to have him in the room. There's Tom Hamilton. Let me pause on him for a minute. Sweet Emotion. It's one of the best songs that's ever been recorded for bass playing, and you just got to tip your hat to that guy. I don't care who you are. He's a very underrated bass player because a lot of the stuff that he does is more driving stuff rather than fancy lead bass stuff like Jack Bruce, which is another amazing bass player. The first band I actually played in and played shows and all that was called Blackstone Cherry, believe it or not. I had always just, played around. Chris, John, Fred, and I had a band before this band got together called Mandrake, but we never really did anything. We just named it and sat in the practice house all the time playing songs and covering other bands and all that. But the first actual band is Blackstone Cherry. There's a big difference between studio and live. Obviously in the studio you get to sit back and listen to music and come up with any idea that you could think of. You have the opportunity to be creative and try things that you wouldn't ordinarily get to do, because in a live setting, if you want to try something, it's just really off the cuff. You never know if it's going to work or not. When it does, it's a beautiful thing, but a lot of times it doesn't. Studio's great for that, but in the live setting you've got fans right in front of you fueling the whole band. It's that exchange of energy that goes back and forth, whether it's a 200-seat club or 20,000 people at a festival or whatever the case may be. They're both very different, but I enjoy both of them pretty much equally. Making music is why we suffer through the business of music, because it's being able to play shows in front of people, it's being able to help people through their lives, sending positive messages out through music. Being in front of people playing shows is what it's all about. The business end, Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's a nightmare. You know, music industry isn't all it's cracked up to be these days. We do our best to try to, fight through it and, do whatever we can to make sure that we're supplied with the things that we need, from gear to bus, crew, whatever the case may be, so we can go do those shows. Sometimes it's a pleasure because, personally, I like having the stress of, waking up and having to deal with record label crap and moving on to doing radio promo and whatever the case may be. But, ultimately we deal with all that so we can get on stage and get in front of all you guys. The best advice I can give you is pay attention to your drummer's kick foot, whether it's right or left, if he's right-handed or left-handed, because that's going to give you all the percussive that you need for your right or left hand if you're right or left-handed. Your string hand needs to be obviously following along with guitars or playing its own thing, whatever, but your right hand needs to make sure that the percussive is there with the drummer really tight all the time, because if you're just a little ahead or a little behind, you're going to mess up the whole song. A drummer or a bass player's role is to sit in the mix and never really stand out for the most part. It's make it feel good, make asses shake, and just make the whole thing feel good, bottom line. I played a lot of different strings. We were with another company, I'll just leave their name out just because I'm not going to be rude, for a long time, and they were good. They did the job. All three of us were using the same company because it's how the deal worked. And later on we swapped again, or we swapped for the first time to another company, and I just really wasn't satisfied with them at all. It sounded like the strings were dead as soon as they went on one of my basses. SIT is the only string that I've played that is bright sounding when you put it on, and it stays that way shows and shows later. It's a consistent sound. It's a more round, punchy sound than any other string I've used. And I can list companies for days that they sound better than, because I've used a lot of different strings in the studio and live before we had a record deal and all that. And SIT is just the best I've seen.
I hope you understand.
My strings in particular are 55 to 110 stainless on my half-step and full-step tunings, and 65 to 130 on the B tunings. Now, what I do, Hoogie, guitar tech extraordinaire, turned me on to this whole idea of, instead of playing with a 5-string, take the top 4 of a 5-string and put them on a 4-string bass, because let's be honest, most 5-string basses, you don't play the high string anyways. You're getting down into the meat of it for the whole thing. So we put the 65 to 130s on a 4-string bass and just set it up for that, and it sounds amazing that way. I don't have to struggle with the larger neck. I don't have to fight through any of that. And the stainless strings, they always cut through. They always set just right in the mix, and I just have no complaints with that.
I hope you'll understand.
My ultimate goal as a musician, aside from the obvious of, play music for the rest of my life, hang out with my friends, and change lives, is ultimately we want to be the biggest band we possibly can be in today's era. Obviously it's not the 70s anymore. It's difficult to sell billions of albums or whatever the case may be, because of downloading and all that, but we just want to be able to play arenas and sheds and stadiums and all that, and get to the point where we're playing in front of huge crowds and getting as many people in front of us as we can all the time to try to reach as many lives as possible.
When I